All right. Well, you have a little bit of a demo for us to get started with, so let's move right on into there. I am
Sure.
also not a CI/CD expert, which is another reason I brought you along.
Last week you were talking about the sort of local way that that we usually start with image mode and talking about needing to do updates and things along those lines. One of the things I figured I would do, since this is a real world application, is we have this, right? This is our bootc base image. This is the source we're pulling from the Red Hat terms-based registry. And you notice there's a weird tag here on the end. We're not using just straight 9.6.
Hmm?
We publish these with basically that's just a Unix epic timestamp, like the build date. And one of the things you can then do is you're making sure that exactly, you're not just pulling whatever random latest 9.6 happened to get published that week. You know that you need a little more reproducibility in your images. But we republish these things, right? So if you look in the container catalog at that particular tag, you will notice this admonition that we strongly recommend an update because we published a new one. So let's go ahead and do that with the very, very advanced copy paste techniques.
I mean, you have to remember that big long number and type it in exactly. So I'm not going to slight you for copy paste.
Yes. Or, you could just guess random timestamps and hope we built something like that.
Oh, there you go. That's a way to do it.
So this is very much the same sort of thing that you saw yesterday, right? Yesterday. I guess it was last week, right? It's Vim. It's NVim because I'm feeling fancy.
Fancy.
But the other thing you might notice if you're sharp-eyed or if you've seen this before is this little main thing here, right? This is a signal within NVim that this is in fact, and also in my prompt, this is a Git repository, right? So if you're not using Git today for all things, you should probably be using it. We can talk about that later. But part of Git ops, right, is using some sort of Git-based system to update to latest Red Hat base. Let me finish typing so I can talk. Is that you can make these sorts of changes and you can record them, and then also doing the things that you are doing, right? This is just really basic, right? We've just got a bare Git repo. We made a change, and now we would go to build it to get the update to actually use it, right? Instead, though, I want the robots to do it. So GH, that's the GitHub CLI tool, right? So like Git, there is a GitHub CLI that lets you do various different things. And this workflow, this lives in the Git repository. It defines a set of what they call actions that uses GitHub's built-in tools to run jobs, to do all sorts of things that, you need to do in order to run some sort of continuous integration system, right? Compile code, do whatever. We are using it. And the thing that I figured out how to do was how do we run this? And we can go ahead and just show it. Oops. To copy before I paste. I have a whole bunch of them. Some of them have failed. Some of them are working. And we can see what is going on with this particular job, right? And it is running out and it is going off and doing things, and I can get more logs here on what it's doing, right? So what this is all just terminal stuff that leads into, right? This is just using the API to drive the same thing you would
right.
web UI. Right.
So to clarify for people that are trying to follow along, what Matt did here is he updated his container file. And then instead of building that container locally, he pushed it into his Git repository. By pushing it into the repository, he's able to fire off a GitHub action to build the container, right? Which is, if you're building containers, if part of your daily life is building containers, this is probably not news to you that this is how people build containers, right? You've got a Git repository that contains your code and how the container is supposed to be built. You're not manually building these containers when you need them built out. You have automation that does it for you. And that's exactly what Matt's showing us here.
Right. And it's similar to what we do in the infrastructure world too, right? Like we don't manually, well, hopefully most of us, because I still do it on occasion too. We're not grabbing the RHEL installer, firing up a virtual machine,
Right.
manually typing a bunch of commands and then exporting that somewhere in order to do our builds, right? Like we have Ansible, Terraform, Puppet, whatever
Something. Yeah.
involved. And hopefully all of those things are also somewhat stored in Git so you can work together as a team, right? Because the thing that I didn't do here, which I probably should have, but this is a literal private repository, right, is you get the ability then to do things like create a pull request, which allows you to ask somebody else to review the changes, right? So you can say, oh, this is what we want to do to our production environments. Nate, would you look this over and make sure I didn't screw something up? Works on my machine, but like let's review it like it's code and we're working on a team together.
Right.
Let's go ahead and jump over to the actual repo here. Let me pull up. That's an old one, so we can actually see, right? This is now the web UI. I'm logged into my account on GitHub, and we can see like this is just real proof of life. Like this is actually running remotely on GitHub. And right, it's talking a little bit about what it does. These are individual actions. These are just basically little scriptlets. The language isn't particularly hard to learn. I had no idea what I was doing when I started this. I get it working in about 2 weeks. So it's pretty simple. And
yeah, you can see the container build happening.
Right. And this is what sort of, this is the interesting parts, right? This is actually containers in containers. So this step of builda is running inside. You can see it here where it says bin docker exec. All of this is running on GitHub's free stuff. Like I don't have hidden machines running any of this. This is all running on the infrastructure for free accounts. You can do self-hosted and other things. This is working completely on somebody else's machine. It's actually using real subscriptions. These are parts of the things I had to work out. Like, how do I get subscriptions into a Docker container?
That was an interesting hurdle when I built mine. I built something similar on GitLab, which we're going to show in a little bit. And maybe I'll walk through a little more of how I made that work when we get there.
Right. Yeah. So we're letting robots do the work of building a new image. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll touch more on why that's important and what that really means for us operations folks that maybe weren't doing CI/CD pipelines or weren't considering doing CI/CD pipelines for our server builds, because that's the state I was in when I was still in the industry. We had build automation, but it wasn't like this. We did like Kickstart with, Puppet that came in afterward, or Ansible, whatever it is that you wanted to replace your automation of choice with. But this is a different level, a different type of build automation.
Yes. It looks like we've got some minor local failures with something going on here.
You broke
stuff, which is always the good thing when you're...
Yeah, well, just wait till you see the logs of my jobs. It's like fail, 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 succeed.
But this seems like it's working, so I don't know why it's tried 3 times. So maybe there's probably just something. Yeah. So this is probably something. Oh, no, there we are. So we're in the commit, and it is moved on. In fact, it looks like it's actually completed. Cool. So yeah, so that literally now I have an image published just like you did last time, except I didn't do any of the manual typing of build commands. I wrote it once.
Right.
And now I can just make changes and have it trigger and do work for me.
All right. So, what we just showed there is using automation, not just automation, but using container automation, because that's essentially how you would build a normal container, right? If you were building anything, some container application, containerized application. That's one of the common ways in which these things get built. I've been doing that for, a handful of little projects. And I know there's folks out there that probably maintain hundreds, thousands, perhaps even, of different container images. And the thing that makes this novel is that we're doing it for a full installation of RHEL here with RHEL image mode. So, Granite Penguin says it's not a demo without a fail. Probably when you were talking about the errors you got there.
Probably.
So yeah, that's probably true. Probably true. I don't know if we'll have any more failures today, but maybe we will. Now, obviously, that build took some time, so we couldn't really watch it get completely to the end. I guess it was almost done there, wasn't it?
It actually is done. That build a step with its failure is the longest step at about 5 minutes. So we actually managed to talk through the entire thing. We can scroll down and I can show you the rest, but we got the little green check mark
Are you saying we talked too much? Well, here I'll
I
switch
don't
over
know.
to the
Probably
here.
like I'm going to close. I was trying to close these before we clipped over, but there's a little green
sorry.
check mark and there's the time on that, right? Like that's 5 minutes. Everything else is in
Right.
seconds.
So it did finish the build
So
that quickly.
it
My
finished
GitLab
and
instance does
pushed.
not get it done that quickly, but
That's the
there's
nice
lots
thing
of
about
factors there.
other people's infrastructure, right? Is
Right.
you know, we're
Right.
not running it on like that. This is maybe a little too inside baseball, but during the beta, Nate and I were doing a Forgeo install on a NUC that is currently dead because I have attempted to rebuild said NUC with Forgeo on it using RHEL 10 in image mode and haven't gotten around to finishing it. But yeah, like, you know, that is not a fast build either because that's
Right.
an old system.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.